Welcome back, everyone, to the Scale Riders podcast. Tonight, for episode 269, we have a talented scale model artist and fabricator whose work truly stands out in the model car community. He's known for building and fabricating 1/16th, 1/25th, and 1/43rd scale cars, creating highly detailed replica drag cars, pro street builds, funny cars, and more. His craftsmanship and precision bring the drag racing world to life in miniature form, from custom chassis work to engine detailing that looks ready to fire up. Please welcome to the show, Chris Sobak. What
Hey
up,
guys.
Chris? How you doing?
Hi Edgar, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you for joining us right here. Before we get started, Chris, I want to go ahead and jump into the chat room just to shout out some of our friends and viewers here that are joining us. So shout outs to Freddie Soto, Paint Maverick, KRD, Clean Race and Car Design, Carlos Avalar, Slowly Models. What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in. And I wanted to remind you guys throughout the show, if you have a question for Chris, please feel free to, put go ahead and ask them away. Cool. So let's see here. So we're gonna get started with the first segment here of the podcast, guys. We want to know the history. I want to know the history of Chris, how this all got started, his history, and take it away, Chris.
All right, well, I know that you've asked in the past kind of like when how old some of us have been when we started building or the first model car kits. And gosh, I'm trying to think right now as far as I know I was a young kid. I don't know if I was somewhere between 5 and 8 years old with, some of my first like snap together kits. I remember them being some monogram stuff. And I probably would say most likely it was some sort of a funny car kit or a drag kit. So a little bit about me is, um, I guess I grew up around drag racing. My parents used to pit on a top alcohol dragster team up in California, and so I was 7 months old at my first drag race, and grew up around that, the 70s to 80s, and so that's probably where my parents would get me some model kits and stuff, and I'd build those, and you'd see snap kits, and I couldn't exactly tell you what kit it was that was my first, but I do remember a couple specific kits that I had as a young kid, and then just would kind of build on and off. And um, I guess when I kind of really got into things, it was probably I was more about in teenage years, high school age, and was probably about 15 years old. I started working at a mom and pop toy store in the town Salinas, California. So many of you know Paul Maddox, who's Left Coast Model Car builds. I've known him since we were probably 5, 6 years old. Grew up down the street from him, so our families are really close. And him and I did a lot of building and stuff together. And so starting to work at the toy store hobby shop, that's when I started like really getting into building models, and just collecting some kits over the years and stuff, and did that predominantly up until I was basically ready to go away to college. So that was kind of, I left for Sacramento. I went to Sac State, and built up until then, and then kind of had a little bit of a hiatus from building, just from living the college years, even though I took some kits with me up to school to try to build here and there. Also as a young kid. So basically you hear Paul talk about Pops. His dad, George, basically took me under his wing with the model car club that they had there. It was called the Monterey Bay Scale Auto Car Club at the time. And so I was under 18. And so George kind of took me under his wing, kind of had to have a sponsor. And so I was kind of involved with that club for, I don't remember how many years, but I was felt really nice that George would, do that just so I can be able to build with them and go to the meetings and stuff like that. So that's where kind of some of that kind of started as far as building. And it's just one of those things where many of us probably can relate, it's, this hobby is therapeutic for us, and I love building. And I've been in a little bit of a lull lately. Of the past couple of years, I haven't been building as much, but I'm trying to just get back and get that motivation and mojo back to just enjoy it as much as I used to. So that's kind of, a little bit of a nutshell. I mean, I guess another thing I can sit there and say a little bit of my background. So many of you probably have seen, here I am on some of the stuff more recently. I'm designing some other stuff, doing some 3D printing. My background is I went to school, for mechanical engineering, and I do a lot of the CAD work at work. I work in the aerospace industry. So I'm kind of utilizing skills from my day-to-day work job that I do in my CAD software, SolidWorks. So that's what I'm doing at home. So some of the stuff, it kind of comes second nature. And I'll explain more about the 3D printing when we get into one of the other segments, because that's where on how it actually spawned into where I am now with doing a lot more of the printing. So
Nice.
I'm not sure what else you want to know. I'm hoping,
Yeah. So like with Paul, like when you guys connected, was this something like, was it online, or you guys kind of
No,
in the
so I
neighborhood?
lived down the street from him, and
Okay.
I don't know. I was probably, man, I don't know if I was 5, 6. Because I'm a couple years older than him, and I'm trying to think. I was somehow, I don't know how we met, but then our families just became really good friends. And then there's other things that, a little side story. My dad's Norwegian, and Paul's mom is Norwegian, and they found out that her family's from North Dakota. My dad's family, a town not too far from North Dakota. I think my mom went to school with Paul's dad, or they crossed paths, and they're both Portuguese, and it's just kind of, it's a small world. So I grew up basically.
That's
I
cool.
went to school with Paul's older sister, and so we graduated high school together, and just our families have always kept in touch. And Paul's like a brother to me, growing up, and just, a lot of stuff. I mean, another thing that some people may not know, I do have a real car. I've got a 71 El Camino, and Paul's dad actually helped me paint it. So there's different things where over the years, it's just, we've done a lot of stuff together as family, which is just awesome. I
Mhm.
just love, I miss them being out here in Arizona. I don't get to see them as much, but, you're always just trying to stay in contact, texting or whatever. So,
Yeah,
but
and as far as like back then when you were out here in California, you guys were hanging out and building. Were you guys also just kind of hitting up all the local shows in the area?
at that time, man, I can't remember. I remember my first show, man, it was a Rod Powell, who was a famous painter, pinstriper out of Salinas, California. I remember going to one of the shows that I don't know if their club put on or who put it on. I was, I think, a junior or whatever. I remember taking one of my funny cars that it was basically a box stock build, and I think I had put plug wires on. That's about it. And I still have it somewhere. I think it's in a box, kind of all kind of demolished from moving and stuff. But I've thought about, like, I should actually pull some of those old ones out and just set them on the shelf just where you started from, because this was
Mhm.
back, like I said, in the early 90s, when I started building. So, you're young, some of your skills, we don't have the skills as what we have now, as we've grown as builders. And I remember, I think in that one, the first time I ever wired something, I was using like a pin needle, heating it up, and basically trying to just melt the plastic into the
Yeah.
distributor. Not knowing, I think it may have been a 65 El Camino was the first one that I did that, where I actually took hard wire, bent it, and then the other one I used some 30 gauge like Radio Shack wire that my dad had on the funny car. And then you learn about pin vices and other things, other
Yeah.
tools and all that stuff. So I
Yep.
also kind of grew up in the early 90s going to NNL West with Paul and his dad. A lot of the trips we would go up there together, and that was a lot of fun. And then moving away, it's like, then I kind of like fell away from some of going to some shows and stuff like that. And but getting to see the NNL West from the days when it was a Saturday, Sunday show. Saturday was the actual show, and obviously you've been there. You know how big that hall is. That they would
It's
be. It would
huge.
be wall. It was wall to wall models or builds, tables, and then Sunday you come back the next day for the swap meet, and it was packed wall to wall. Now it's like it was split in half the past few years. And so I think the last time I went there, it was, I don't know if it was 2019, I think I was there.
Mhm.
So I wish I could have made it to the last one, but just things didn't work out that way. So
Yeah, same here. That's the one regret I have. I didn't go to that last one. So
yeah.
how you had mentioned, so Saturday the show, right? Everyone's checking out the
Mhm.
models. Would they clear out the room and then the next day bring in all the vendors to fill
Yes,
in all
it
that
was.
space?
Yeah, and this was before. I mean, obviously, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all this stuff as far as ordering online. You'd have to get catalogs, or you'd get stuff at the swap meet. That's the only other place that I knew some of this stuff to be able to get it. You'd be able to find stuff there, but we didn't have the convenience that we have now, where you can just, hey, let me look something up. Let me order this from here. Let me order some stuff from you. Just different, the detailed products. There's a lot more stuff out there now, I believe, than what was back in the day. But there was some cool companies back at that time frame that's no longer around, which is sad. But things
Mhm.
happen where some people close shop and stuff, and you see some good product that you just wish would be around for years.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like I still trip out that we still see like, Ken's fuzzy for bare metal foil, you start
Yeah,
looking at the old scale auto issues and you're like, damn, they're advertising it even back then. Like it's a
yeah,
trip, but it's cool. It's cool that hey, these are some of those companies that are still there, producing stuff. Who knows if it's the same owners or not, but it's something that's still there and symbolic for some people, like, oh, I
oh, it
remember
is.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're right about that. Like, I remember that the custom fur. Detail Master was around. So at the toy store hobby shop that I worked at, I worked back in the hobby department there. So it was all RC cars, planes, plastic models. I remember because I was getting into the models, and then I ended up getting the owners there to be able to get some of the Detail Master. And then I don't know if you remember S&S Specialties. If you
No,
ever
I
seen
never
those or
got
heard of
that.
them, they
Yeah.
were pretty cool because how Detail Masters you got to cut the parts off of the tree.
Mhm.
You got to cut those pieces off. And then S&S at the time, back in that time frame, they had a rubber backing, and it was just cool. You
Mm.
just peel the stuff off, and but they're no longer around. And it was like I can't think of the gentleman's name, but not last year, but I think it was my first year at Acme. One of the guys I met, his name is, I'm drawing a blank, but he was one of the S of the one of the guys, and he actually, unfortunately, believe he passed away from cancer or something. But and I didn't put two and two together until we were talking. He said something, I'm like, oh, you're one of the people that were doing this. I'm like, I loved your stuff back in that time frame, and just wish that stuff
Mhm.
was around, just because of how
Yeah.
nice it was. But there's a lot of great aftermarket companies out there now.
No, there is. And working at the hobby store, like doing that when how'd you find that as a gig? Like did they have like, help wanted or how'd you
Um,
land that?
so kind of I'm gonna backtrack again a little bit with Paul and his family. Like I grew up also, we used to race RC cars. Before I was born, my dad flew RC airplanes. And so my dad actually belonged to it was a place called Salinas Area Modelers. And I started flying airplanes with my dad. And so one of the guys that he flew with, his name was Harvey, and he was like a staple at the place was called Toys Galore. They're no longer around, but somehow I found out that there was an opening, and I was just somehow able to get in with them, and it was kind of cool. It was a fun job for 4 years that I worked there, and had an absolute blast. And at the time back then, you see the kit prices that we're paying now. I remember AMT kits being $7.99, $8.99. It was just like what you would go back now to be like, man, I wish I would have picked up some extra kits or things that's so hard to get today. Where we're paying, I feel like an arm and a leg on some stuff. But then again, just time, comes with the times of materials are more expensive, and depending on the kit, the Tamiya kits and stuff like that, obviously you're paying more for the quality of the engineering that goes behind it and the fitment of that stuff. But I wish I could go back and get some other old Johan kits, let's say like some of the 60s Cadillacs that are a couple $100 or 7,500 or more. So,
Mhm.
but it's just, yeah, it's a I was thankful that I got to experience what I did there, working there. Had a blast. I've met a lot of wonderful people that would come into the show, and there's a few, or into the shop, and there's a few different people that I'm still in contact with that I met from here I was like 15. I started 2 weeks before I turned 16, and here I am, 50 years old now. And just some of those friendships that you develop from back then was always, it's just a blessing. And
Yeah,
it was just neat, you know.
that's pretty
So
cool.
I mean, another thing back at that also was, I can say from Salinas, there's a lot of stuff with like the car culture, and I remember back in that time frame, Fujimi was the only one that I knew of that had wire wheels. We used to have a lot of people coming in buying those things like hotcakes, even though like today's standards, I would say those are nothing compared to what Pegasus and was like lowrider model car parts. Am I getting them right?
Yes,
Just the
100%.
different stuff that it's like the quality now on let's say wire wheels that's out there for lowriders is just amazing compared to what was available. But at the time, that's all that was available. Maybe Pegasus had some stuff at the time, I think back then. Maybe they came out with the Daytons like a little bit after the Fujimi stuff that I had seen, because I think we did carry some Pegasus stuff at one point in time. But yeah, it's just kind of cool, like getting to see some of the stuff that's out there with the growing up in that car culture from Salinas. Like California is just famous for a lot of stuff. I think that where they started certain things in certain directions, and you could see how it's gone into what all this stuff is now. So
Yeah, there was a local the hobby shop where I was going to with my friends, and I still remember a lot of the kits, being like 8.99 or 9.99,
mhm.
depending the what you were getting. I believe what was it, like the 59 Impala monogram. The box was a little bit bigger. That one
Yeah,
maybe was like a buck or two more or whatever, but it was always like sold out. They always had like the 64s or the 58 or the 62 Bel Airs, and
yeah,
I mentioned in past episodes the 62 Bel Air. I always liked the box artwork with the blue car that they painted, the gray
mhm.
background. I always just loved the way that looked. It always stood out to me, and it brings a lot of memories back. But man, if I could, like, if I could have $10, right? With my parents, over time, like, here's a dollar, or here's five, and then all of a sudden I got $10. I knew that I can go with my friends, buy a kit, and have enough to even cover the tax to get
Yeah,
the kit and come back. And once in a while, they'd have a deal. Like you could get a kit, and you could also get like a tester's glue, the red
yeah.
bottle and all that. All right, cool. We
True
got some
Blue
glue.
used to string on us. The smell. Then
Yeah,
they had the non-toxic one. So besides like Toys Galore, I remember. I don't think Long's Drugs is. I don't know if they're around anymore, but I remember getting kits at a local Long's Drugs as well. You'd go in and mom's shopping, and I'm like going in the models thing to see what's there, and it's just like what we would give to kind of have some of that stuff. I think back to be able to get some of those old kits again.
yeah. I'm looking at the real quick at the chat. Let's see. We have a question real quick. Uh, Carlos Avalar wants to know if you knew Mike Flynn.
Mike Flynn. That doesn't sound familiar. That that's not ringing a bell off the top of my head. Was he? I don't know. Was he from Salinas? Was he?
Yeah, I'll find out. We'll find out as we go on. Let's see. So, so in Salinas back then, did you ever get a chance to see like that Impala, the famous one, the local 64?
I was gonna bring that up to you, George
Back
Torres.
in
I
the
don't
day?
remember ever getting to see it, but I know it was famous. He was one of the guys that like I think hit the lowrider scene at that time, and it's just like
Yeah.
I know he redid the thing multiple times. One of the things he had something that his front clip, he did something where it came up, and then the hood, and then I think he did some more stuff to the trunk later on. I know he redid the car multiple times, and like I just now looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I could have seen some of this other stuff. I mean, I know a lot of the stuff people see like, hey, yeah, you know, drag racing stuff is kind of my forte, but I do also like, you know, customs, lowriders. There's other things that I want to start building because, you know, I've seen a lot of amazing stuff by other builders out there that just inspire you. And it's like, oh, I want to do this and try some stuff going out of my comfort zone or learning more like painting techniques and trying some stuff that I haven't done. And, you know, even with, you know, like painting skills, as far as back in that time, I was using
what I'm getting into as far as like building, because when I got back into model building, it was like 2015, and going forward, it was my focus was primarily lowriders, right? I was like, I just want to do lowriders, and I was just doing just rattle can, one color, and I would say like by the time I was 2017, 2018, I started jumping into custom paint. And I started looking up stuff on YouTube or asking people and meeting people now at the shows around here. And I wasn't building anything else but just that. That was my main focus. But then over time, I started to now pay attention to custom cars, right? And I'm like, oh, wow, like attention to this world. So now I start paying attention to that. Now that's pulling me in. Like, I want to build that. And I started learning about like chopping roofs and sectioning and French this, French that. And I'm like, okay, cool. So it's very exciting. And then those style of paint jobs, working with a lot of pearls and even the patterns and all this different stuff, I was like, wow, very fascinated. And then from that, it spiraled into the JDM stuff. I started getting into more into that. And then within the Japanese culture, I'm like, wait a minute, there's so many sub style genres of cars. It's crazy, right? So then, you know, now this year we got the Acme show coming up, right? So then as time's going on, I start like all these things start coming my way. Like I start looking up magazines online, and then I start seeing all these like the funny cars, the muscle cars, stuff that I would see it at the shows, but I really wasn't paying too much attention to. And then I'm going, man, look at the paint jobs on these cars. Like, look at the muscle, look at the detail, look at the big fat tires in the back. Like, now that's pulling me in now, and I'm going, dude. Like, when I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go to the Acme show, and then I saw it was like 100 years of Mopar and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, this is perfect. This is like what I'm soaking in right now, what I want to do and check out. And then when you send me photos, you're like, I asked you, hey, can you send me some for the podcast? You started hitting me with stuff, and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like, this is like the stuff I'm looking for. You know, I'm like searching out there for. Watch, let me pull up. Let's get into this one right here. The 62 Bel Air.
Yeah.
Let's bring this up. So I want to know about this build. You know, tell me everything you can tell me just from looking at this photo, and we're gonna go from there because, man, I love the paint job and I love all the detail you added to it.
Thanks, I appreciate that. So this was actually back when I was in the club with Paul and his dad George. This was an inter-club build, so they would, I think, every year randomly pick one vehicle, and you'd have a period of 6 months to build it. And I don't remember if this was like 94. It was either 94 or 95-ish. Somewhere around there, 93 to 95. So they picked it. And it's like, okay, what do I want to do? You know, I'm a big fan back in that time frame of, you know, pro streets. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna pro street this. So start out with the AMT 62 Bel Air kit, and then I ended up using an AMT 67 Chevelle back half. I wish I would have given you or had a picture so you can see the bottom of it, but I basically, where the wheel tubs, I had cut the chassis, and then brought them in together to get the tubs back there. And at the time I was also, okay, I want to open up the trunk. And so, you know, I think that was maybe my second time opening a trunk, because I did it on a 67 Chevelle Pro Street that I did before this. And inside the trunk, which I know you'll get to a picture later, there will be basically the fuel cell that you see was scratch built out of evergreen styrene. The fuel pump on the side, on that left side that you see there, was pieces of styrene that I scratch built, and I just located the battery to the trunk, and did the typical brass tube with the brass wire for the hinge, and then just made the lip with some evergreen styrene, and tried to make the roll bars. I didn't, obviously you can see in the picture, I'm going to point out a flaw in myself. You can see the one roll bar is not lined up perfectly, but at that time, I mean, like I said, this was back, I was 96, so I was maybe 95. Maybe I was 18, 19, 20 years old or something around this time frame, because I graduated high school in 93. So, yeah, then I ended up using some of the, I don't know if that was Detail Master flocking or the Ken's fuzzy fur flocking in the back there. I also, on the interior, I scratch built the roll cage. I flocked it. I'm trying to think. I may have used a different shifter from another kit. I'm trying to think of what else. I wish I would have grabbed I had a little like spreadsheet thing that I would used to display next to this, just kind of the stuff that was done. And then, oh yeah, then I used, I can't think of the company there. You can barely see the 5-point harnesses. They were kind of a pre-built harness. They were like, back at that time was like $10 for, I think, one or a pair. It must have been one each. And they were really neat, like photo etched with the paper already kind of done up at that time frame. And then I also used, I think, a Detail Master fire bottle that you can see. The tachometer, I remember painting it, doing a dry brushing detail so you can actually see, you can read the letters on it. I don't think I gave a picture of the actual dash, but you can, in that photo there, you can see the 5-point harnesses that were used. And I don't remember what kit those seats were out of. But then I tried to do something where it was a little bit of a two-tone gray interior, something to kind of just give a little contrast to that aqua color. And the motor, the AN fittings on there were RB Motion AN fittings. And at that time frame, Detail Master was one of the only braided lines. And then I think there was another one, MSC, but these are all Detail Master. Now, I can tell you hands down, I will tell anyone, Protex got the best braided line out there. If you want to do braided line, I would highly recommend them. The quality's great. I know that now with the resin printing, there's other people out there printing fittings that you can use. I've just been a big fan of the RB Motion stuff. I know they're a little more pricey, but he's even gotten some stuff now where he's actually anodizing the stuff, so you don't even have to paint them. These were painted with Tamiya's clear red and clear blue. And then it's obviously it's wired, and I should have all the correct plugs going to the correct spots on the distributor on this. And then there's also an aftermarket overflow tank that you can see basically on the right-hand side from the radiator. And let's see, what else did I do? I know I opened up the grill so you can kind of see through the grill. And so when you get to this picture here, so another little quick backstory, besides working at the toy store hobby shop, I ended up going away to college, or maybe actually it may have been while I was still kind of in my junior college there in Salinas. I had actually gone to work for one of the local auto body paint supply stores. And so I used to mix some paints, and I used to be a delivery driver at one of the places that Paul will go get some materials from. And so I actually had these colors here was mixed there. I know the turquoise and I don't know if the turquoise was custom, but it may have been a color I found, but then I had to mix a lavender and this purple. And where I got this idea for this graphic, I used to go to the Good Guys car show all the time up in Pleasanton, California. And I was walking around the venue, and I was watching a guy pinstripe a car. So I sat there just watching him doing this thing, and it was neat what he was doing. And then he did this little application where he took a sponge. And so what you see here is something that I took from what I saw at the show. I'm like, I'm going to try this. So I painted this car, based it. This is all PPG stuff, and based it, taped out the graphics for the lavender. And then I took a dish sponge or something, tore it, basically took it into probably on the paint lid or whatever, dipped it in, and then took it on a piece of paper and basically kind of tried to blot most of it out, and then just kind of to see, hey, can I do this? And just started going down the side to get that little effect. And it's, it turned out good for what it was at the time. I'm real happy with it. And
I like.
I don't know if you froze up or I just didn't hear you. Sorry. Maybe on my side something is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All
Sorry.
right, cool. No, yeah, I really like the way that came out. That looks really nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
I just,
that effect
like I
right
said, it
there.
was something I just saw. I'm like, I'm going to try this. And it's like, I don't know if I can do it. And, sometimes we need to try some things. I mean, I've tried a lot of stuff over the years and like failed at things. I'll explain probably a little bit more in one of the other segments with the funny car where I've I've gone back and redone things multiple times because either I'm not happy with it, and so also I just want to sit there and say like how I kind of got into spraying automotive paints. So Paul's dad, like we were teenagers, or obviously, yeah, I was 15, 16. And like you start first. I was painting stuff with testers, rattle can, and that type of stuff, and then even airbrushing testers, and then testers clear, the enamels. And after getting to a little bit being George teaching me some of the stuff with the automotive paints, and I knew people at the time were also using like fingernail polish. I remember people bringing stuff into the local hobby store with, hey, we're painting with the lacquer fingernail polish. And I think one of my first vehicles that I sprayed automotive paints was, I believe, a 65 El Camino. And it was either that or it was a funny car. I don't remember which one, but it was the same. My dad had some Centauri single stage enamel automotive stuff that I sprayed that. I sprayed two vehicles with this blue. And I don't know if that kind of started getting me to go down, hey, with the automotive paints, learning the stuff. So I pretty much kind of shot PPG and House of Color. Um, Also learning that there was a lot more color choices, and at the time frame, it would go get like a touch-up bottle. So a touch-up bottle was probably like 2 to 4 ounces, somewhere around there, and you just had a lot more colors to choose from. And so that kind of made me go that route, as far as like, hey, there's just a lot more colors. I know there's a little more investment where you got to have, at the time, you got to have your reducer, your base color, and then you had to get your clears, the reducer and hardeners for that. And so it was a little bit of a price to like say, hey, let me go buy a quart of this. It's probably back in that time frame you could get, gosh, man, I don't know what I paid for quarts, but now it seems like paint materials are just outrageous if you want to go get a quart of some good material. Because I was spraying PPG, DBU, and DVC. And the DBU used a different, it was like a reactive reducer versus the DVC just used their typical 870, 860. I don't know if you're real familiar with the PPG stuff or not, or just like kind of how House of Colors, the urethane reducer. And it's just, I don't know. I've learned a technique with spraying, and Paul will probably laugh at me because I'm still spraying with my go-to airbrush is a Badger 200 that I bought when I was working at that toy store hobby shop. And I still have the same gun, and it's always my go-to gun to spray, even though I've picked up a couple Iwata airbrushes and guns. And I want to do a little bit more with some double action stuff, just to try to do some of the stuff where we were talking about the fades and patterns and lace and stuff like that. I would just love to get a little bit more into that, seeing just some of these other stuff that many of these other great builders out there are using those techniques. It's like, I want to try this, or you see stuff on a real car that like, oh, this is kind of neat. Can I do this? Can I not? And we don't know if we don't try it. So it's kind of like pushing ourselves sometimes out of a comfort zone to see, can I do it? And sometimes if we fail, like, okay, that's not the end of the world. It's like, okay, let me go back and try. What did I do wrong? I got actually a funny story between Paul and I. We we were spraying. It was an AMT extended cab Chevy truck, and I remember it being I think it was a teal. I don't remember what car it came off of, but it was a teal green. And we had some, his dad had some dry pearl, and I don't know if it was PPG dry pearl. And here we go, mixing. I think it was like a purple pearl going over this teal green on this truck, and we're spraying. We're not paying attention. When we end up loading up with clear, and we had these runs, and we laugh about it today, but we're cracking up about it because we were just trying some stuff. Oh man, we've screwed some stuff up, that's for sure. But it was just it was fun to be able to just learn some of that stuff and try it. And I don't know, it's just now we've got so many, I want to say, outlets out there. You've got scale finishes, you've got splash, you've got all this other pre-mixed up stuff. And like I was saying, I've shot a lot of the PPG and House of Color, and I've just recently kind of started buying material from Tropical Glitz. And I'm excited to use some of that stuff as well, just see, because I think it's going to spray just like House of Color. But when you kind of get comfortable with materials, it kind of comes like second nature, I guess, a little bit, if that makes any sense. But I know everyone's got different things. I know some people are more of a DuPont, which maybe DuPont's what Axalta now, and then there's RM. There's, gosh, man, there's so many different aftermarket stuff out there, or automotive paints that you can use. Duplicolor. I think Duplicolor has some stuff at like O'Reilly's, or I don't know if it's Checker out there, or Kragen's is what it was in Salinas when it was that, but Checker. AutoZones, I know they got some stuff that's like mixed in the can that you can use, and everyone's going to find something like, oh, hey, I like this better than this. And it's like, I think that as far as when it comes to paints, use like what you enjoy or what you feel more comfortable using. And so
I agree. You mentioned Axalta, so that's a brand I have not used, but I have conversations with my friend. He uses it, and I'm always like, dude, one day I want to try it. I want to see what it's about. It's an automotive urethane paint, but there's so many brands, or so many things, even just independent companies that have emerged within the last couple of years that have been producing their own paint. There has to be more than a dozen now, and before there wasn't. Like, I mean, you have the big companies, right, that keep absorbing other companies and they keep getting bigger. But now you have some more independent paint brands that are emerging, and people are trying out their stuff.
Oh, definitely. I agree with you that there's just more out there. And I mean, it's also price point, some people, it's like, you may not be able to, like, hey, I can't go spend, I was looking some stuff up recently just on some House of Color stuff. I was like, holy smokes. It's like these quarts are like $100 and some odd dollars a quart. And it's like, I remember back in the early 90s, there probably that same paint was $30, $40 a quart. And it's just outrageous. But then some people looked at it, like, especially the clears, I can't remember, let's say I spent $100 back then. It's like, yeah, it's a lot of money for, let's say, us as a teenager to like spend that on material. But a quart, you know how many models you're going to be able to get with that quart? You're going to be able to spray a heck of a lot of models with that. And I know that, you got, not Splash, I'm sorry, on Scale Finishes, he's got some pre-mix, and maybe Splash has it too, but they've got their clear sets, and you get the clear reducer, whatever it is, to mix. And, there's 2 ounces. I don't know. It's like $10 to $20. Think about that on like a quart setup. I found some other urethane. Like I was using the PPG Deltron. It was a 2020 was one of them. There was a Concept 2001, and I think now it's Concept 2021 is their current thing. But you're paying probably for that, God, like I said, probably easy over $100. So I've been using their Omni line. So I've got a local PPG shop that I go to here, and the one guy that I like to deal with him just because he's treated me well, and just I get along with him good. He's just saying the difference between Omni and let's say the Deltron line is the UV protection. I mean, one, but the other one is it's a little bit of a different where you mix it's like I think 2-to-1 hardener to the clear, where the other one is like 4-1-1. You got 4 parts of the clear to 1 part reducer to 1 part hardener. So there's a little bit more there, and then the hardener, it can go bad on you if you don't use it after time. But a lot of my stuff, this may sound weird, but I keep my hardeners in my refrigerator just to kind of keep the air out of it.
Yeah.
But
it works. Everything's been good with that. Like,
yeah, I've had stuff that's worked great, and I mean, some stuff it's like I still have some of that old 2020. I'm saving for some special builds where I don't want to just use, because you can't get it anymore. So it's like, okay, I gotta kind of be careful on how much I use it. But that was always my favorite one to spray. But the other stuff, the Omni line, I've had pretty good luck with it. And I guess the other point I wanted to make for people out there was, even if it's a little bit of an investment, over time, that material is going to go a long way.
Yeah.
And so, and so you can intermix some reducers. I mean, I've taken some House of Color reducer and throw it in my PPG stuff. Even my PPG guy said, hey, as long as you're using like a high grade or high quality reducer, you can throw it into pretty much any urethane. You just don't want to take, let's say, an inexpensive or a cheaper line into, say, like PPG or House of Color. Does that make sense?
Into a premium and then it just doesn't bond well.
Yeah, it can do something. And I mean, there's so much stuff that, different little tips and tricks and techniques I think that we learned. And, I was telling the guy, because one of the things I'm trying to do on one of my other builds where I want to try to do some sort of like matte finishes. So he actually gave me some high grade lacquer thinner, and he was like, hey, take this, and once you mix the clear up, and I don't know how much I need to put in, but he says putting the lacquer thinner in the urethane clear will kind of help dole it out to get that like suede look. That makes matte suede look, because there's so many cars I get ideas like, oh, I want to try this, I want to do something that's suede, I want to do, you want the high gloss, then you're trying to do something that's, let's say, maybe it's period correct from like the 70s or 80s, where they're not quite as shiny as the 2K stuff.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So,
I have seen even like House of Color has like a quart of like a matte finish clear, but I've only seen it in the can. I haven't seen a photograph or even a video of someone showing like, hey, check out my car, I cleared it, look at the matte finish. I have not. I'm curious though, like to see it, because I've always used the Show Clear. I used to use their UC35, but the Show Clear, it's like, I would say it's more like if you're doing like a lowrider or a custom build, to say like, this is like let's just pretend like it's a show car that I'm gonna bust out at the Grand National Roadster show.
You want that to shine as best as you can. That's like, I agree with you on that. Like having that high end stuff where you want like that, I want it to really pop and just you see the depth of it. And
but I do see your point too, as what you're saying is like you want it more the time period piece. Like maybe they weren't using this for a car that was out racing or being out there, on the streets. Like that's another thing to think about. And sometimes I could get so excited. I'm like, oh cool, I'm gonna throw Show Clear on this, and I'm like, oh man, wait a minute.
Yeah. Then you get some people too, like, okay, I don't know your feeling on this, but like decals and clear, so you're talking some race cars, and some people, don't like that. Hey, I don't like to bury my stuff in clear. I go on the side of like, I like to lay clear over my decals, even though I know some stuff, it may not be 100% right, but I know it's going to seal it, protect it over time. And that's just the way I am. I mean, you'll spray your base. I'll spray 1 or 2 coats of clear just so you've got a nice smooth surface to lay the decals down on. And then I'll come back, and always my first coat, like I'll mist the first 2 coats, and then I'll lay my heavier coats on, and just so that I know that it's protected. I have seen it though, if you spray it a little too heavy on some decals, I've seen some where they kind of wrinkle a little bit. So the solvent kind of pops it a little, but then it kind of relaxes and then it pulled it back. So I was like, okay, I was concerned on a few paint jobs I've done that I was
With
like,
that. Damn,
oh,
that's
maybe
crazy. Yeah, what a trip. Let's jump into the next segment right here, which I'm pretty excited about because this next segment it entitles the engine details and techniques of creating realistic, engines for like funny cars. I'm gonna pull up some photos and then
okay.
you can kind of describe what we're seeing here.
Yeah. Oh, I'll let you. I don't know where you want to start with some of those.
So so right here, these few right here that I'm pulling up, it looks like they were like a progress photos because there is watch, let me bring up
I
this
had a
this
couple.
one.
I know with the injector hat where I think I sent you something where there were some bits of like where the pieces of it just to kind of show
This is pretty
what
cool right
stuff was.
here.
So
Like the layout of
yeah.
all
So
these little pieces.
here what you're seeing. So can I like back up on one little thing to like tell you like when I first started because that injector hat I designed it through my CAD software, 3D printed it, and when I first started, what kind of drove a lot of this. So this Army funny car that I was doing originally, I was like, all right, this is gonna be my first build, and then I think I started this in like 2010, no, probably 2011. I was like, I want this to be my most detailed build. I've never done something as detailed as it ended up being, and I thought to myself, I'm gonna take a year to build this. And so, I had purchased a Mark Johnson resin engine because I wanted that engine. And then there was other little things that I was trying to take the blower from that kit and make it look like a Mooneyham blower, like the restored car. So everything on this funny car was based off of Don Perdome's restored Vega that he ran, that he had. He only ran this car, I think, 2 or 3 races. And so the blower is what kind of got me to say, hey, I couldn't scratch build something as far as taking the resin piece and making it look identical. And I was buying some 3D printed parts from a company at the time called TRD Innovations. They were on a website called Shapeways. And sorry, let me turn something off. I might hear something
Oh
ringing.
yeah, right.
Um, and so when I was ordering some of these parts, it dawned on me, I'm like, I do the CAD work. Why don't I try to see? So this blower on this car is what kind of has drawn me into all the stuff that I've been designing and doing now. And so I was using a service from, once I started doing some things on this build, hey, it started with that blower. And then I'm like, well, what else can I do? And then like, how small can I do stuff? And so I couldn't tell you like the blower, the injector hat, the blower belts. Man, I got some other stuff. I know when we get into a couple of the other things I can show you, I can explain some stuff there, but little by little. And then I was trying to figure out how can I, see if I can, how small will something print? Where can I get, I'm trying to see where does it fail? And then the TRD, or I'm sorry, not TRD, Shapeways, they started doing things where changing prices and then stuff was getting more expensive. And I'm like, dang, they wanted to charge you for every single little piece I put in there. Here's $1 for this. So let's say you had 50 components, that's 50 more dollars. And it just got more and more expensive. Well, at that time, home, home printers just they weren't, the quality wasn't good at first, and now you see stuff, it's like it blows me away where this was back in, let's say, 2000. Man, I don't remember when I first started printing this stuff, 2013, 14, 15, to what the printers at home now. I can sit there and print better with my printers I have now than the service that I was using. And it's just like you see a lot of great people out there, that are printing, VCG resins, Chris Bell, the stuff that they're putting out. I mean, it's just amazing as far as, when you got all these people on Colts, the different designers. So on like my drag cars that I'm doing, I'm pretty much designing everything possible on my stuff there. And I do have some other stuff that I'll buy some of the other designer stuff because I can't design everything for some of my 25th scale stuff, but I've gotten from this funny car build, I've got a love for 16th scale builds just because they're a little bit bigger. I feel like you can do a little bit more detail on it. And it's just one of those things where I love doing some of the details and seeing, hey, can I do this? And I really pushed myself on this build to get it to look as accurate as I could from, the information and the pictures that was out there. Cause I even reached out to, Prudhomme's office or where he had his cars. Like, people wouldn't help me. Then I found out that I think at the one point in time that Rick Hendrick had bought this car from Prudhomme and it was in his personal collection. And I was trying to get someone there just to get me some pictures because I didn't have enough pictures of this. So I had to make some assumptions by some other cars from that era. So is there do you want me to go on? So I don't know. I guess I kind of maybe got off track of once you had the picture of this injector hat with the pieces that were spread out, just kind of showing you.
Yeah, let me. I'll pull that one up right now, man. I'm enjoying looking at all this stuff, dude. It's crazy. So this is 1/16 scale. This build right here.
Yes, this is a 1/16 scale build.
Let's see. So we have a couple of photos here that are where it's spread out. So I'll pull both of them up.
Yeah.
That's so dope, dude. I like how you put the penny right there just to show the size.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, to show people like, hey, here's kind of like in reference of what it is or how big some of this stuff is.
Yeah, man.
So, right, so here,
go for it.
No, this is so the hex nuts that you see. So the injector hat was 3D printed. This was printed from Shapeways at this time. The hex nuts were from RB Motion, and I don't remember. He had certain hex nuts that were like a certain width, and I asked Robert. I was like, "Hey, is there a way that you can make me some that?" I gave him a specific size because of what I was trying to do, because the other ones were too long. And in this, on doing these hard lines, when you go to another picture, I'll tell you a little bit more on that. But so I've got brass tube that can you pull the one up where it's actually showing the lines in it? So there's brass tube that I got going through, and you see the hex nut. And so if you look closely, you'll see a little bit more of a brass tube coming out of it. And what I was trying to simulate there was there's a sleeve. So the nut's called a B nut. There's a sleeve that goes on when you go and actually flare the tubing on this, and then that kind of it seals it down. So I was trying to represent on a real unit that there's a little bit that sticks out from the nut. And so those, I believe, if I'm correct, the wire that I used, or the rod, it was a 20 thousandths diameter rod for those injector lines. And so I was trying to, get everything to try to make it look like the real thing as close as I could. And then obviously the fuel block was a turned aluminum, was machined out of aluminum. Then I did stuff where you see the little, the linkage on the side right there. That was something that, like, I didn't know if stuff would print that small. That was one of those items that I was like, well, let me see if it can do this. I bought some real pieces. They were used. So I, reverse engineered some of those. So some stuff I will, if I can find something cheap enough, I'll buy the real part. That way I can model it. And so I know I've got some accurate pieces of components that I want to make. I wish I could do that to everything, but some stuff is just too dang expensive to buy. So, but it's hard to find, same thing here. Here's the manifold and all the different, how many components actually made up the manifold. And I did like here, as I was telling you, I had done a lot of things where what you see here is not the actual initial bending of these pieces. I started actually bending all those wires. I did prototypes out of brass because the brass was much softer, and I wanted to make sure that things were going to be how I had to figure out, okay, I got to bend this here. And so I bent rod after rod, and it stemmed probably from when I actually did the rear end to do the brake lines. I was using some actual piano wire on that. So that was really hard, steel wire that, man, once you bend it once, if you don't got it right, that piece was kind of done for. So then I was like, well, let me start doing some prototype pieces out of brass and getting stuff set up. And I actually took that. I think I had some 3D printed pieces of the fuel block, and I glued it to the base to keep that secure, just so I was able to get everything plumbed correctly. And then I went back and cut it off and had to redo stuff, and then bent it out of. I think this one here, those were actually Detail Masters. I think some of their aluminum rod that they had. And then since then, I found some other stuff where I'm using some actually soft stainless rod that I get off of a company called McMaster Car, which is a company. I mean, they got all kinds of materials, tools, things I use for my everyday job at work where I order materials. And they've got, you can get some of these rods. It's like $10 to $20 for maybe 50 pieces. So it ends up being a little bit cheaper than buying these shorter. I think Detail Master only gives you like 3 inches in length, where some of this other soft stainless rod is actually, it bends really easy and you get a lot more bang for your buck. So if anyone wants to know, I can show some more stuff. People can reach out and I can kind of give a link or whatever. So then here was, once it was all painted, with Alclad and painting everything to try to get the fittings to match. And so if you can see where the black, I painted all those hex nuts black, and you can see that little bit of the brass sticking out. And that's that little part that I was trying to simulate the sleeve that goes on to the injection lines or injector lines.
Yeah, I could see it from right there more now with the black, and even in the other one, the other angle, but right here you can see it more of the little sleeves, and then you have the rod coming out of that. Dude, this is so cool to see. Like, these shots are really nice too. You took some really nice shots dedicating to showcasing all this detail right here.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was trying to show that too with everything. I mean, like I said, a couple of the reference pictures, I'm like, oh, I got to make this. How am I going to do these pieces? What am I going to do there? So you can see some of the AN fitting stuff. Those are all the turned aluminum from RB Motion. And obviously, okay, in this picture, you see how you can see the brass lines going into the manifold, like right above the valve cover.
Yeah.
So that's where I was saying, like, that was what I kind of prototyped with the brass, just because it was easier to bend. And then I think I was having trouble with some of the other stainless or whatever music wire I was using. Then that's when I kind of resorted to using the Detail Master aluminum line. That's what I kind of was just trying to mock everything up to, hey, I want to make sure this stuff fits. I know on the injector hat, like, I actually had drawn that, and so then I actually printed the stuff out 1-to-1 and laid, because those were pretty much flat, and I was able to lay that and kind of bend. Now the other one, I had to do some weird stuff to be able to get a couple different angles and bends to make it all like as tight as I was able to put those pieces together.
Yeah, as far as a tool, is there anything special you're using to get these kind of bends with that radius?
No, I probably was using either some like flat pliers, or I'm trying to think. I know I have some Tamiya like photo etch, but I don't think I would actually use the photo etch pliers on that. I was just using a pair of pliers or flat pliers or something. Some of them you got to be careful. I know, like, I probably mess some stuff up if you squeeze too hard. Then if you've got some of the like knurling on there on the pliers, so if you squeeze it too hard, you'll put some of that indentation on those pieces. And definitely, I mean, you don't want to do that. But so here's kind of in another process where I was kind of getting things, together, getting, I'm trying to think even where to like begin on that. But so the headers you see there were actually all made out of brass. So I took the kit headers, and then I kind of made up a little jig out of balsa wood. and I think balsa wood and a little bit of plywood where I glued it, just trying to like hold the pieces together where I need them to be to actually solder that stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of things there. Even the little, you can't really see it, but on the side of the chassis, you can see the black panel from where the seat ends, and it goes up under where the header is. Those were some aluminum printing plate that a dear friend of mine, he's since been, he passed away from cancer, but a guy named Brad Norgard, he would give a bunch of us here in Phoenix and other people that would come into the Arizona show pieces of this real thin. It was probably 15 to 20,000, maybe not even that, maybe 10,000 thick printing material, some press or something that he would get this stuff from. And so I actually took, made those panels, and you can barely see it here, but you can see there's the little bolts where there's just those little silver dots. They're actually bolt heads on there, but in between those I did some little bead rolls on them, or tried to simulate the bead rolls to match what the real car had. And so I went through multiples of these because I was putting the material down on like a rubber pad, and then using like a ballpoint pen and kind of like tracing it, pushing it. And then you learn, well, if I push too hard, I break through it. So I had to remake these a bunch of times. And I had actually a couple issues with this car when I originally started it. Where the motor sits now, the kit actually had that chassis. The motor was set like a half an inch back. So I've redone this chassis like multiple times, and it's like, I wish I didn't have to do that. But from reference pictures that I had, I was like, well, this doesn't look right. Now I got to figure out, okay, how do I go about getting things set in the correct position? And then trying to think of what else to tell you here. The little rubber boots are made out of, there's probably one, two, three pieces. So it was a brass washer, a brass tube that goes down into the valve cover, and then the little brass tube that where the plug wires are coming in. And then I soldered that all together, and then filed the solder just to try to make it look like the rubber boot. There was some things here I'm like, well, can I do this? And even on that, like right in front of the valve cover, you see there's a little like a water jack where you actually the water, and you see there's a line that goes down to the header. The I'm trying to think if I had the little piece 3D print. I think I actually 3D printed the little 90-degree elbow. I was like, well, let me see if this prints, and it printed. Like, I was kind of amazed that I was able to get something to print that small, just to try to capture that little, it's a minor detail that maybe not a lot of people will see, but it's something that I'm looking at, I'm challenging myself. And I've been inspired by so many people over the years. And I know I was going to tell you, like, back when I was working at the toy store model shop, we didn't have all the internet and everything else that we have access to now. So you would just see stuff that was in Scale Auto, Car Modeler. Those are the two, and then Fine Scale Modeler, but they were always focused more on the military and aircraft. But you'd see people back in that time frame of stuff in the magazines, and like, how detailed stuff was. And it's like, I'm going to name a couple names from back in the early 90s, seeing like Clay Kemp's work, Randy Durr, David Thibodeau, who is also, David Thibodeau is no longer with us, but just the quality that they were putting out back then, I was like, I always told myself, like, I hope one day I can build something, as detailed as these guys, not knowing if I ever would. But it's like, you never know until you actually put yourself and kind of push yourself to try, and, and don't be afraid to fail and go back and redo some of it. So there's also, like, you see the little ignition box, the Mallory ignition box, which is kind of it's a purplish reddish thing. It's towards kind of the middle front, like right behind where the radius rod and the bolt. So that was another item that I had 3D printed. I mean, the Hillborn fuel pump, which you see kind of in between the two pulleys, I actually got a hold of Hillborn to ask them, hey, is there a way to get some measurements? And so they sent me a picture of the fuel pump, and they just had something where, let's say the overall length, they gave me something next on a piece of paper with a link, and they gave me a couple images and shots, and so then I just basically I drew that fuel pump up from what they gave me to try to have the fuel pump look like the correct fuel pump on there. So
Yeah, dude, this is so cool. I'm like just geeking out, like looking at it. Even like this right, I love those wheels. What kind of wheels or what material is that, dude? Those look like real, like they have air in them.
Yeah, so the wheels there are back now. It's they were micro nitro, which now is Dancing Bear. Jim is just a great guy, and then the actual tires were Flashpoint resins back. This was when I don't know how many people remember when Terry owned Flashpoints, but this was back when he had the company. So I incorporated the micro nitro wheels, I should say Dancing Bear wheels. And I mean, I polished them out. And so they're all turned aluminum. And then obviously on the rear wheels, I've got all the studs. They all thread on. I've got the bolts. People like it's kind of funny when people would watch me at shows, like taking it apart, because I try to show a little bit of the detail. And I got a little wrench that I go in and unscrew the studs, the nuts off the studs to pull the wheel off. And and they were actually, so the rubber, it's not just the rubber that you see there, it's actually painted. So obviously my friend John Teresi showed me how he would do some of his tires, how he would take the rubber, he would paint it with some acrylic paint, some folk art paints that you'd get from Michael's or Hobby Lobby. And he would do that, and he kind of showed me how he weathered some stuff, and that's how I kind of came about to do the wheels, to get lay the decals down, weather them, and kind of dirty them up so they weren't just bright and shiny, because I kind of wanted that little bit of like worn look, I guess, on the tires, because that's how the real car was.
Yeah, because even like the Goodyear looks worn, like dirty. It doesn't look like it's like bright white, like very clean, like brand new tires.
Yeah, those the
cool.
decal. I'm trying to remember if they were. I think the decals on there were Slicks decals that I used. Well, okay, the front were Slicks, and then the rears are actually. I had some sort of a. It was like a brass photo etch. I bought multiple pieces because I didn't know what was going to fit on this, but it was like a photo etch template that you would put over, and when you'd paint it, it would give that like it was a stencil look. And then I went back over that stuff, and like I said, I try to kind of dirty them up a little bit. And then I've got seeing this picture here, I wish I would have sent you one that was more close on the seatbelt harness. So you guys will probably laugh about this one. If you can see the silver pieces on the seatbelt, material was medical bandage tape that I used. But the silver stuff, which is supposed to represent like a fire retardant material that they would put around the belts on these cars. I was actually at Chick-fil-A one day eating lunch, and then like the inside of the bag, I was like, because I was trying to figure out what I was going to use for that. I bought some like foil, and I heard people will use the inside of like a cigarette box. It's kind of got like a foil, but that had a bit of a pattern on it. And one day at Chick-fil-A here, I'm like, well, this is kind of neat. I'm like, so the next time I went, I actually asked the people at Chick-fil-A, I'm like, can I have a couple of those bags? I just wanted to use it. So it's weird. Actually, my parachute on the back of the funny car, the parachute's also made from a Chick-fil-A bag that's folded up, but it gave the correct sheen and like that material that I was looking for, just to represent that fire retardant material that they would put around the belts.
Oh, that's cool. There we go. Trying to see the
you can kind of
Chick-fil-A bag in the back.
Yeah. And then I think it's also wrapped around. So then there's some like nylon cord that I found off of eBay that I don't know where it was, but that's probably some of the stuff that I found that's the best for the parachute lines. And it's either like 4mm or 5mm nylon cord, and then part of it's all wrapped up where it's got the fire retardant material, other than when it goes kind of right into the bag portion of it, and then also where it actually has a little like hoop that I've got a pin or a bolt that goes through on the rear end. And that picture, it's actually not attached to the car because it's kind of laying on the ground since I was taking the body off, just taking these pictures down in my neighborhood. So
Yeah, these are nice. Yeah, when I look at the scoop and everything, I just love, the way it looks very realistic, all the detail on there. Fire extinguisher, you see it right there. That it's nice, man. These are some beautiful
yeah, the
photographs.
fire extinguisher, the bracket, you can see the little silver bracket. That was something else that was 3D printed. I think I originally 3D printed the bottles, and then I actually think the bottle was I actually had one of the guys at my work. I was like, hey, can you? I had to machine a bottle and then I ended up painting it. So, but I wanted to get that, where it was, I knew that stuff fit properly. And yeah, there's a lot that's gone into that. And even you can see if you look above the fire extinguisher where the roof, the escape hatch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a working escape hatch. It's latched. It's got a spring-loaded mechanism, and I made it was a full like piano hinge. I made it out of multiple little small hinges that I had to cut and solder together, and then obviously I had to cut a hole because Prudhomme had an actual little clear. There's a little clear window strip inside of that escape hatch, and so I was like, can I do this type of stuff? It's like those little small details I just wanted to try to add, and how do I do it? Or
that's the challenge. Like when you see something, you're like, all right, we're gonna be adding this, but how?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And you see, okay, I'm going to point something else out here for you on where the injector head is. So if you see the black portion that goes that wraps around the little, I don't know what you want to call that, where you see it says Ed Pink. So this car started out from there was a double kit. It had a dragster and a funny car. Well, this body is not the one that was in that. This is actually out of the Jungle Gym. And then I used the front, the slant nose, and the rear of the Army kit with the Jungle Gym body, because they had the snorkel. That's what I was trying to think what that was called. What that was made out of, some either like milli putty, something that it was a putty that I shaped, and I just tried to get it to where it kind of fit. And I think I laid tape down on it just to get the shape, and then it pulled stuff off so that it wasn't actually glued to the body. But from the real car, it's like, okay, how do I do this? That was another tricky thing. And it's like, well, can I lay Bondo, shave Bondo? And then it made more sense with this I think it was called a milli putty.
The milli putty, yeah.
Some sort of it was like a clay. I want to call it clay, but I don't know. I wish I had the right thing in front of me to tell you exactly what it was. I just know it was a 2-part piece that you'd mix it, and you were able to have work it with a little bit of water and kind of.
Yeah, it might be that one, because that one does come like that. It's like a 2-part.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And then those little front, if you see right now in this picture above the fenders or whatever, the pieces there's a little air vent that he had there. Those were scratch built out of plastic out of multiple pieces. I think I had one for the base, 2 for the sides. There's a back piece that's an opening, and then the little front piece with the two openings, and then there's little rivets that are on there. That was another thing that I wanted to add to the actual car, and maybe the Jungle Gym car did not have those, but the other one, it had a little thing on there, but they were too tall in my opinion. So it's just, yeah, I was trying to get every little detail as possible I could. And then even on the front, you can see right above the snake, I actually have a working latch, so when the body goes down, there's a little bit of a spring-loaded hook that will hook on the body. So
I see it now.
You can barely, barely see it right there.
Yeah, it lines up. It lines up with that front lip part of the front the bumper. But you could see it. You could look like you could grab it. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I mean, there were some challenges even with the paint on this. I mean, also the the kit comes with the red were decals, all that stuff was decals, the blue, but actually the red wasn't. I painted everything was a House of Color Euro red. So I had, I think this also was it Brad Norgard did a template for me because he was really good with Adobe Illustrator, and I went down and I had some vinyl mask made from a local shop that I had them just cut me those so I can paint those like hockey sticks to tape that off. And then I ended up getting with Chuck Barner, so some of the decals on here, Brad redrew some stuff for me because I bought the funny story on this. I bought one kit. Okay, this is the kit I want to do. The decals were bad. So I went and I probably spent like $120 on this kit. And then I went and spent another 120 just to be able to get another set of decals. And those were garbage as well. And so some of the other stuff, I had two different people. So if people don't know who Chuck Barner is, he does a lot of drag racing 125th and 1/16 scale decals. So do you mind putting the picture back up of it where it's like the whole car sideways?
Yeah, let me pull this one up. Let's see.
If that's okay. Not to.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you can see where the red, so there's a black stripe around it. And I was trying to figure out how am I going to do this? So the red, basically I painted the body with House of Color white base. I think it was BC 25 or 26, whichever is the white base. Laid my inner coat clear down. I like when I do multiple colors, I like laying an inner coat clear so that when you lay your tape down, you don't get no tape tack and there's no like bleed through from color. And I can't remember if I did the blue first or if I did the red, but the black stripes around those little hockey sticks and around it actually follows and goes around to the back of the car are all decals. And those decals they were a pain in the rear. I mean, I bet you I worked on each of them, both sides, like an hour to 2 hours each because you'd get it. I'd move stuff around, get into position, then I'd think I was good. And then I would hit it and then it would all like off shift and I'd have to start back. And so I kept working it with water. I'd use kind of a little bit of a soapy water, just everything just to get it lined up. But it was a pain in the rear, but I knew that I wanted to paint it all other than if I could have striped that, I probably was going to try to even paint it. But I was like, man, that's going to be tough to even mask that out. So that's why I ended up having them like, hey, I asked Chuck Barner if he could remove the red out of the decal and just print me just the black pieces. And, it turned out where it worked. It was a lot of time just on those decals.
And that's awesome. Yeah.
Hey, cool. There's Josh.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh. Sorry if
let me give a shout out to some people because we have been getting more and more viewers jumping in right here on the chat. So let's see. We have Gatsu. What's up, man? How you doing? JC, Lowrider Model Builds. Josh, OmniWorks. We also got Skill Model Cars from Hawaii. What up, guys? Tuned in right there. Awesome. And then Mars Garage, Quantum Mesqua as well. Let's see. Then we still got Slowly Models right here with us. Nice. I wanted to jump into the next segment, which I feel like people should take some notes on this one right here. This is going to be an exciting one for you guys. This one is going to be regarding the 1957 Chevy stepside build featuring a handcrafted Mexican blanket interior detail right there. Let me pull those up.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. I'll have a good story for you guys on this one too.
57. All right, so I'm gonna pull up the 1-to-1 scale car first, so you can see that right there, and then I'll start pulling up the other ones.
Yeah. So this, just to like give everyone a heads up. So this was a 57 pickup that I saw out here at a Good Guys car show in Scottsdale, Arizona, and you can't really see it here, but this had a suede matte finish. And I just really liked the truck. I was like, man, this is just a cool looking truck. And so this was the inspiration for this build that he's going to show, which it started out. So in the midst of me working on the funny car, I was like, okay, I need to have something to take a break from it, because there was a lot of times that funny car became where it was a lot more work. And so I wanted something fun. This is going to be a curbside build that was supposed to be quick back in like 2013. And obviously it's still not finished. But I was trying to do something as far as, hey, I want to build something like this. It's not a replica, but it's kind of, in a sense, a replica, if that makes sense. I wasn't going to try to make everything identical, but I wanted to try something. And when I saw the Mexican blanket, I was like, how can I do this? I want to have a Mexican blanket in there. And at the time, I believe some of the decals out there, to me, just they didn't play the right part for me. And I was like, how can I do this? And I don't know where or how I got the idea, but as you see on the screen here, these are just some of your crafting yarns. I bought this stuff at Walmart. And I was like, well, let me see, how am I going to try to do this? And I thought, hey, if I get this stuff, what I did here, what you see, like the strands. So I was unstranding the pieces to use that. And so basically I put those pieces and then kind of basically took some Tamiya tape, flipped it upside down, and just started laying it out and trying to figure out a pattern. How can I copy that look that I was going for from the real truck? And my first couple pieces weren't really successful. Excuse me. I think I started where I started going really, straight. You'd have the stuff, and then somehow I got off kilter, and like it was wonky, and I'm like, whoa, that's not going to work, because so back to the drawing board I go. So I do another one, and same thing. I was going to have it where it wrapped around on that 55 kit. The seat and the back are two separate pieces, so I try to make it all in one solid piece. I'm like, oh, I'll tuck a little bit under. That didn't work, so I had to actually make two separate pieces. So in the kit, or the build of this, like the seat, I had it wrap over the seat, and then I made a separate piece, and then I had to just make sure that when I put the pieces on, I aligned the stuff, so everything kind of was in line when you see the two separate pieces. So it simulates like the blanket would be tucked in. But at the time when this here, I had never seen anyone do this, and I thought, how else can I do it? And here's one of those things, trying something, and it just kind of worked. And I think Paul was saying something, and I showed him pictures on this, and I wish I've had this build done sooner, but it makes me seeing stuff. I'm like, it's another one of these ones right now that I definitely want to get back to. And I want to get this done in the here in the next, I'd say 6 months, because I got a couple things I'm trying to do, but this is one I'm like, hey, I'm going to pull this back out and start building it. Obviously it's a curbside. There's going to be no motor. And so the interior is completely done. There's really not much on the chassis. I just got to start doing some body work. And then there's something that what you don't see in the picture of the real car, the bed, the guy actually has like some bamboo pieces. So he had kind of a little bit of a elevated bed. So I've started to design and print some stuff just to try to simulate the bed, that will go on the back of this. But it's going to be just a curbside, and it's going to be sprayed with just the base. And I'm not going to, there's going to be no clear on it to try to get that sheen, what you kind of see there, because since this real car was not a high glossy piece. And then the only thing that I did use, you see that the hubcaps, obviously, I wasn't going to find anything that matched that. Right now, I could probably go draw some up to have it match that, but I want to use those Mexican sombreros that I believe those were from, was it Bob Dudek? Dudek, I believe, was who I got those from. So I just kind of like the little styling with the model house wheels. And, like I said, on this, just trying this blanket thing, it's just, I've got some future builds where I want to do it with, I went and bought a whole bunch of other colors just to have some other things to be able to do. But, this was just kind of a cool thing that I didn't see. Like I said, that blanket was done back in 2013. So that tells you how long this build has been sitting around, and I need to finish it up.
It's like, finish me. Dude,
Yeah.
this is cool. This is so cool. When you sent me these photos, I was tripping. I was like, wait, what? And then right here, like I would have probably made the mistake and just used it as is, like this, all thick. But then
well, what I would tell you,
separated was dope.
What you see here, Edgar, I would go back. So I don't know if you can tell, but there's another spot where there's actually in each of these pieces here, there's another 2 pieces that are twined together. On the next one I want to take those ones apart, and so they'll be just a little bit thinner, just to see how that would be. And so I tried, like with this picture, the only thing I couldn't get correct was if you see on the real car in the upper picture, there's those little crosses. I was like, there's no way that's happening. So I just, I kind of went with my own thing to make it close to it with similarities on this real car. And I even, like on the door panel, I sanded off whatever was molded in on the kit one, and I kind of tried to simulate what was there.
Yeah, man, this is so cool because this just opens up, a lot, like a door for a lot of people here to add more detail to their builds.
Yeah, and like I said, when you messaged me saying something like, "Hey, I want to dive deep into this," I'm like, I need to send you these pictures just to share with everyone. Hey, this is how I did this, and I'm the type of person that I'll share everything that I do. I'll show you guys how I've done it. Like back, I know in the early '90s, there was a lot of people that they didn't want to give away their secrets, dude. Like we're all here to learn. Like I see stuff, I want to learn stuff. I've had some people share things with me. Like, when I first started, another example I'm going to use, when I first started spraying Alclad, I had the hardest time with it. And, John Teresi, he's like, hey, I only use like a capful. I'm like, I'm spraying so much material, I'm wasting a lot. And then he explained to me how he did stuff. And it's like, oh, and then under my Alclad, I don't use the Alclad black base, but I use, my House of Color black base with my Omni Clear. And I think that anything anyone does with Alclad, your prep work is going to be the most important thing. Get your parts as smooth as possible. And I just think there's something it works for me. Maybe, different people may not with the urethane clear, but I just really think that it added some better finish from when I first was trying it with their base. I don't know how much you've sprayed Alclad or any of those, but there's some other ones I want to try. But I've been real happy with the Alclad stuff that's out there. But I've got a few others that in my pocket, or I've purchased some things I just haven't had time to test them out yet.
Yeah, the Alclad's good. I've used it before, but I feel like also the same. Like I've added like a lot of material to it, and I'll let it chill. Then I'll come back and I'll add more. Like I'll let it flash, and I'll keep adding more until I go, okay, I think I'm done. Like I think this is as good as I'm gonna get it to the look I'm going for.
Well, I've always liked when you're on the piece of the injector hat. Like when I sprayed it, like I don't know if you've noticed, you spray it and it kind of gets where it looks like it's cloudy, or it's kind of like dry on there. I don't know. And I come back and I kind of buff it a little bit afterwards and let it, sit for a day or whatever. And then come back and just take either a real soft tissue, soft maybe microfiber, not to like really rub on it, but just kind of like wipe it down and lightly buff it. And I've done it on some spots where, let's say on a ridge, I've wiped it down and I go back and I've seen the base. You can actually take your, mix up or just put some more in your airbrush, lightly hit it, and you can kind of fix it. And I've even taken some where I've had an edge where I've actually dipped it in the paintbrush, like a real fine tip, and just barely hit an area if I've like wiped some stuff off before. Because it seems like you go to clear the Alclad, the chrome, and it dulls it down a little bit. I can tell you, I think on the blower, I'm pretty sure the blower and the valve covers I actually cleared, but I didn't mind that it toned it down because it made it look like polished aluminum, and it gave a better finish, I think, than the chrome for what that piece actually was. Versus on the front axle of the funny car, where that would have been a piece that was chromed. So there's no clear on the front axle, but I did it on a couple of the engine components, and it gave that little bit of sheen. And to me, it made it look a little more realistic. I'd like to try, like I said, I mean, I think I even had some polished aluminum alclad. I don't know if I used that on any of the pieces or if it was just the chrome at the time. But I've got some, I think some SMS hyper chrome to try. I've bought some of that other stuff, that ultra lumen, which is kind of pricey for 4 ounces, but it looked like it was pretty good. Trying to chase some different stuff to see like what else, is there anything better out there for us that works, that you can handle, because it seems like no matter what, stuff rubs off. Or I've never tried the Revell chrome. I know I've heard some people have some really good results, but I've also heard it takes quite a long time for it to dry.
Yeah, I have it. I've used it on some wheels and on a build, and it was one of those things where it's like I try not touching it. Like I spray it and let it chill for some days, come back, hit it some more. When you're spraying it and it's still pretty wet, like it looks very chrome, or you're taking a photograph in that moment, it looks very chrome. But then after a while, it's not as shiny. It kind of dulls out a little bit. So you can go back and spray a little more, but you don't want to touch it. That's another thing. Like and then you feel like you're kind of caking it on. Like now it's kind of thick. So the more you when you're gonna handle it, like I remember doing the front bumper and the rear bumper, and I was holding it with some alligator teeth from the bottom, and I had to just somehow maneuver and just kind of just drop it in there without touching it. I was like,
we got to be creative. We got to be like MacGyver to get some of this stuff. You're right. There's some things, because I'm thinking about that 57 pickup where the front and rear bumpers. How am I going to go? Because I'm going to strip the chrome and outclad it, or like, okay, I got to figure out how I can hold it. And then how do you go back and install it without even, let's say, touching the outside of the piece to glue it into position? Or I'm even trying to think, can I do something with magnets? You glue some magnets in on the frame and then have it, just come up and snap together, like.
All right. Not true. Let me, I have a question here.
Yeah.
This is some Mars Garage. He asks, hey, Chris, what is the one build genre that will put you out of your comfort zone?
Oh, gosh. I guess, man, I don't know. Because like I said, I like all kinds of stuff. And I've always wanted to do, I think, some sort of like patina, like rusty, the weathering. I don't know, where you're doing the chipping, the rust, and trying that. I think that would be a little bit of a challenge. Man, I just think some of those patinaed cars look really cool, and it's just something I've always have wanted to do to build, and eventually I will. I've even seen a couple different dragsters. I've thought like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to do something that's all rusted up, but I really would like to weather a car, just to make it look worn and stuff like that.
And let's see. I was going to do a follow-up regarding earlier. We had a question. This was from Carlos Avalar earlier during the podcast. He had asked, let's see. He was asking about, if you knew Mike Flynn. And then he later followed up. He said that he used to work for Pegasus Hobbies back then, and that he used to build models the way you are. Like, I think in probably the funny cars and maybe the 116 also.
Does he know? There was a gentleman, I remember, oh my gosh, I cannot remember what year it was at NNL West. This gentleman had built a 16th scale. I remember it being a John Force funny car. And he did something where he actually, the guy was showing me, and this had to have been from 93 to 96. And he actually, when he'd push on the gas pedal, and he had the little butterflies on the injector open up. That's something I'd like to try on some build one day, just to see, can I do it? Is it possible? But I don't know if he's saying someone that built that. I don't remember what that gentleman's name was, but I just remember being that, young kid at that time was like, that was a cool build to see that.
Yeah, that's dope. That sounds fun right there.
It's kind of cool to try to make some working features. I mean, I'd like to do some more stuff where, you get some opening doors and other things. And I mean, there's so many people that just are like inspiring to me and just, makes you want to be a better builder. And hey, can I do this? And like I said, that build, I pushed myself farther than I ever thought. A lot of people, as I think I started to say, this was going to be just a year build. That year build turned into 7 years, and I've got well above 2,500 hours into that build over that time frame. And it took me a lot longer than it should have. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I think when I go back and I look at it, I don't mind all the hiccups and hurdles that I had because it
Mhm.
turned out better than I think I originally ever even planned. There's some things I'm like, even now, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done this because I hacked up the kit chassis and I cut it up so much that I wish I would have just scratch built the whole chassis. There's
Mhm.
pieces, it was all evergreen styrene that there's only maybe like 5 or 10% of the actual kit chassis that's left on that. And it's just like, that's the thing I kind of regret. I'm like, I should just have done it this way. I do
Yeah,
have
yeah.
some stuff like a future build that I'm doing now or been designing. Like I told you guys early on, like I was growing up around a dragster team. And so there's one I'm actually designing. There's pretty much going to be no kit parts, but I'm going to end up doing a brass chassis. There's just different people that are like, hey, my good friend Clay Kemp's done a lot of stuff that way. I'm like, hey, I want to challenge myself. Can I do this in brass? And it's just a goal of mine to do that, especially because that car, like there's a couple variations. They had a couple front engine cars, which I was too young. The pictures that I have of the one I've designed, I wasn't even born. And I just remember the rear engine car, two specific paint schemes, same car. The guy, he would paint his car like every couple of years. I'm like, I've always wanted to build that because that's where my love of drag racing came from. And I'm kind of going some extra steps on these builds that I probably wouldn't do on any other stuff, but it's just because of what these builds mean to me and getting to grow up around some of these iconic drag racing strips in California at the time frame. It's like grew up going to Fremont, Sacramento, Bakersfield, Orange County, which is no more, Pomona, like just some iconic places and that's like that era of like the 70s, the 80s. I think drag cars are probably my like what I love the most, just because they all were unique. They had their own names, and it was just some neat stuff back in that time frame. Like you knew cars just by what they were named. Now it seems like a lot of stuff is kind of cookie cutter. I mean, don't get me wrong, love it. They're going fast, but what I would love to see just these older stuff. Like if you ever get the chance to, you've probably seen some stuff out at I'm sure they got some of the Cackle cars down at the Grand National Roadster Show, obviously Bakersfield, and they do the hot rod reunion. It's just kind of cool to see that those old cars being restored and stuff. And that's, I don't know, it took some guts for those guys to be driving those front engine cars with the rear end right in their crotch. And just like I couldn't imagine doing that back in the day.
Yeah, that's crazy for
Yeah.
sure. Hey, you gotta later after like send me some links for YouTube, some old videos and stuff of cars racing.
Some
Like
of that, yeah.
there has to be some stuff from back in the 70s that you're like, dude, you need to check this out right here.
Oh,
Check this
there's
out.
some cool stuff.
I
Yeah,
got
I
I want
mean,
to see that.
if like I said, I could have shown you, probably I could have sent you a lot more pictures. It's like I was trying to figure out, okay, just how I didn't want to overload you with stuff, but then I'm also like, okay, just certain projects, but I'll have to show you a few things.
Now we'll have to share those like in the future and like
Yeah,
follow
or
up.
I'll get to, you know what, I'll be able to show you some stuff with Acme because I know you're going to be out there.
Yeah,
So
we'll be out
um,
there.
I'll be able to show you some things. I'll have pictures on my phone and stuff with,
Yeah. No, yeah.
especially,
I'm planning to when I'm out there to record and hang out. So we'll most likely do I want to do a walk around with you. Like let's check out your car. Tell us whatever you bring. We'll put something together.
well,
I think that'd be
the
fun.
sad news is like I really wanted to get something done for the drag racing class. I was all excited, and then like it's not happening, and it's like So I don't know
Yeah,
what I'm
it's
not sure if
close.
I'm gonna bring anything or not. But
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've thought about like because couple things I took last year. I sometimes don't like to take the same thing back, but I was like, well, maybe just to throw it in the drag racing class just so it's there, but I don't know if I'm going to.
Yeah. Flip a coin.
Yeah, I know. I'll ask
It'll
a
make
few
it
of my good friends. Like, I got a really
What do
great
you
group
think?
of guys that I hang out with. They'll be like, hey,
Yeah.
should I bring this? Even though I brought them last year just to have something, but
Yeah. No, that'd be cool, man. No, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm excited. You know, I can't wait to meet you out there. I
yeah,
know I'm in California, you're in Arizona, but you know, this is gonna be the meeting ground where we're gonna it's gonna be far.
Definitely.
We'll be
Definitely.
we'll
And
be there.
are you gonna be at the Spirit of Speed for the NHRA?
Yes, I'll be
show?
there. Are you gonna be there?
I'm gonna try to make it to that one
Okay.
too. I got
Yeah.
myself
I'll,
and a few people. I don't Charles Feldner from Chuck's Hobby Spot. I do a lot of traveling to shows with him and his wife. We go to a lot of we went to the SoCal Open the past couple of years.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't get to go. It's been a few years since I've been to the Spirit of Speed. And then we've done some trips we did GSL and a few other stuff. It's fun just to, you get that close group of people to, hey, travel, go to shows. And it's more about the shows. I have more fun with hanging out with your friends and just people. And it's just like the modeling community. It's just neat how you meet people. And it's one thing that I liked about GSL. I wish it wouldn't have ended, but you'd get people from both sides of the U.S., you get people from Canada. I remember people from Puerto Rico, and like in my opinion, it was like the best of the best there. And you had 4 days to just hang out with people, look at stuff. Because sometimes I go to a show and you get so busy talking to one another that you don't see more models that get put on the table. And you're like, man, I missed this, or I didn't get a chance to see everything or take pictures like I wanted to. And so GSL has been what I call my Super Bowl of model shows. But now that that's gone, Acme is my next favorite build because of just the quality content that's there on the tables. Like I said, I hang out with an awesome group of guys that I'm looking forward to seeing, and we just have a great time together. And you're gonna love it. I mean, you're gonna be blown away. I mean, the vendor stuff is pretty cool. The new place is really nice. I heard the old venue. I went to when it was at this new place. The old venue, they said it was kind of a little bit of a sketchy part of town, or
we got a deal at the venue.
Yeah. So do you know what day you're coming in for that show?
Yeah, Friday. So I'll be there. Friday. Yeah, like I should be touching down noontime or so, and then I wanted to get there early just so I could hang out like the Friday night, because I heard that people get together like on a Friday night. So I'm gonna see what's up with that, and then the show Saturday, and then just come back Sunday. So I'll probably be back home like Sunday morning.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I get there early Thursday afternoon, and then fly back Sunday morning. So you see like the hotel. A lot of people are hanging out in the little area where they got their little food court or whatever. It's really cool. And there's a patio on the outside with some fires, and it's just it's a blast, man. It's
nice.
I can't say enough about this. It's just like one of those things with people, if they've never been or you get the opportunity, try to get out there because it's fun. It's great.
No, awesome. Well, hey, we're gonna wrap this episode up. Let me thank you, Carlos Avalar. Says great show, good info for all. Thank you for the time. Let me see here. I'm gonna do like a quick roll call. I just have to go all the way up because it was pretty active right here for the chat. So let me see, Chris. Let me go back up.
Yeah, sorry if I didn't see a whole lot of people. I wasn't looking at that because I was trying to more so talk to you.
No, it happens, bro.
Everyone that's got to tune in and
Yeah. All right, so we got Freddie Soto, Paint Maverick, KRD, Clean Race Car Design, Carlos Avilar. Let's see, Model Car 1589, Mars Garage, Juana Mesqua, Steven Kessel. Let's see, Scale Model Cars, JC's Lowrider Model Builds, Katsu, which is Big Dad's Garage, Bugs. What up, Bugs? And let's see, Styrene Live 505, OmniWorks, and Slowly Models, Josh Reese, VCG, Clay Kemp, Scale Modeling. What's up, man? I see you out there on all the platforms. It's like X, Instagram. He's everywhere.
Yeah, wait till you
Brian,
get to see some of Clay's stuff in person.
Oh,
He's
no.
got some stuff is just like it
Awesome.
blows you out of the water, man.
I'm gonna see him too. And all right, cool. Well, that's everybody right there. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. In case if you tuned in kind of late, don't worry. Once we're done with the recording, give it some minutes. It will populate on YouTube. The full video will be there. And so this was episode number 269. Thank you, Chris. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And we'll be back next week with a new episode. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you, Chris. At Acme Show, bro.
Same here, and I can't thank you enough for having me on. It's been an honor. It's been, so much fun to chat it up with you, and we'll get to chat it up out at Acme.
Yeah, man, for sure. We will. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude.
Well, thank you. Thanks for everyone that came to watch, and hopefully I did okay in my first time kind of doing a podcast live and not knowing what I'm doing.
Bro, we're gonna do a follow-up. We'll bring you back for sure, dude.
Sometimes I can get a little chatty, but it's like, hey, I'm like, got a lot of thoughts in my head.
Good.
Like, man,
I
had more stuff I think I was thinking about, like, I could go into this and how to explain a little bit more where certain things came from, and but then again, hey, it's been fun.
It was awesome. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, you guys have a good night and enjoy. All right. Peace.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Later.
See you later.
Later. All right. Cool, bro.